Hey guys, MarkBoy124 here, bringing you a battle from my live stream. Check out my live stream sometime when I'm streaming and maybe your battle could be featured in my next video. So right off the bat, I see he's a Conkeldurr, and Conkeldurr runs Mach Punch most of the time. And I have an Azelf, and with my Azelf, I like to get Explosion off after setting up my screens with Stealth Rocks, and Priority really hinders that, so I figured, hey, I'm gonna mix up my lead Pokemon and see what I can do. So my opponent leads off with Heatran, and that kind of threw me for a shock because I was really expecting Conkeldurr or somebody else to counteract my Azelf. However, he went into Heatran. Then, followed by an immediate switch to take my Fake Out, he sends out Zapdos. My Hitmonlee then gets a disgusting normal gem crit on the Zapdos. And as you can see, Zapdos is a physical wall. That was a lot of damage. I figured then, hey, I shouldn't have my Hitmonlee get tasered by a giant bird, so I'm gonna switch out. My opponent then makes a solid prediction and goes for Roost. In hindsight now looking at it, Zapdos is usually run Hidden Power Ice or Hidden Power Grass, and that could have really hurt my Hippowdon. Fortunate for me, he did not and switches out. I follow up that turn with a safe play using Toxic. Toxic is good on almost anybody, mainly because my Hippowdon only has one attacking move, and that's Earthquake. 90% of the time, Rotoms only usually pack U-Turn, Thunderbolt, and Hydro Pump, so I figure with Sandstorm up and a max special defense investment, Hippowdon can probably take the Hydro Pump, so I go and set up my rocks. Knowing that Rotom has Will-O-Wisp, I didn't want to switch any of my Pokemon into that, so I sit out with Hippowdon and predict the attack and go for my Slack Off. Unfortunately, I get Will-O-Wisp. I'm not too worried about the Will-O-Wisp, it's only really going to mitigate my leftovers. I figured here my opponent was going to switch out, and I went for the Toxic. But unlucky for my opponent that it was a Chesto Resto set, and I Toxic'd him right after burning his Chesto Berry. Sandstorm's gonna wear off, and that's somewhat unfortunate, and now my Fat Wall will become more gluttonous in fat via leftovers, and then take burn damage from 3rd degree burn. My opponent and I seem to realize that we're at a standstill right now, and unfortunately, I switch as well. Now the last Pokemon I want my Tyranitar to fight is a Metagross head-on, especially because I know it's a Mega Metagross. I know Metagross doesn't actually do that much damage, I just know it has a lot of coverage, so I figure I can send in my Azelf and get my screens up and possibly even get Stealth Rocks up before it kills me. I'm not too sure what my opponent was going for here, switching out Metagross to Zapdos. I think maybe he thought I had something that could one-hit him, but that was probably not a good idea. So I'm gonna go about my merry way and set up my nice clean screen reflect. So as you saw, my Azelf outspeeds Zapdos and gets a nice, disgusting explosion, and I can switch into Hitmonlee safely. I go for Fake Out because he has no Pokemon with Rough Skin, Rocky Helmet, or any Ghost types, so it really is just free damage. You can really see the whole purpose of my team here with Toxic, Rocks, and Sandstorm built to wither down my opponent's Pokemon. I'm not too sure whether or not my opponent went for a double switch or just sent out the wrong Pokemon. Regardless, I'm not too sure what I would have done in that situation either. But now, the triple switch! Somebody please call Bruce Lee! I'm usually pretty confident with Hitmonlee's Unburdened Speed stat, however, I know that Aerodactyl can outspeed even Usain Bolt on good days. So I switch on into my Fat Wall. I know Aerodactyl doesn't carry Grass or Ice or any special attacks, so we can pretty much just eat it up. Now I'm not too sure if it's a common thing for Aerodactyl to run Double Edge, but it really did throw me off. And I can see it being somewhat viable, mainly only on its Mega Evolution though. I personally think Aerodactyl's a really strong Pokemon, and I almost put him on my team However, he's pretty restricted to a suicide lead or a very potent mega lead. So coming up next, some incredibly disgusting, hot, steamy stall by my side. Why? I know it's a terrible thing to do and it's not that fun to play against, but it works, and that's unfortunate. So near the end of my stall, you can see that I went for some earthquakes, and that's because I thought there was a chance that Aerodactyl would get switched out and used for fodder later on, and I figured if I can predict that, I can get a nice clean earthquake off on someone else. So my opponent sends back out his Metagross, and I know that Hippowdon can probably take whatever he can dish out, so I stayed in and went for the Slack Off. Unfortunately for me, I couldn't stall that out because this is Pokemon, and we have added effects, and I got flinched. At this point in time, I have no save switches, and Hippowdon is pretty much Sandstorm fodder, so I just let him fall. So I send in Metagross's Arch Nemesis, Hitmonlee, and clean him up. Or so I thought, and get wrecked! At the time, I honestly thought Unbird and Hitmonlee could outspeed a fat, six-armed, fat, steel fat, but no. So I send in Twitch to finish up the job, and I finish up the job, but that Conkeldurr, man, so much pressure. I switch out my Porygon Z, expecting a Mach Punch, and I don't want to hit him with a Dark Pulse because he most likely will be running Assault Vest, and it's resisted, so I'll only hit 25% damage. So now my opponent and I, we decided, let's play a game of Guess Who, and guess who's coming out next. So I send out my Assault Vest Tyranitar, and let me tell you, Assault Vest Tyranitar is absolutely the most menacing special wall I've ever seen, because once you send it out, it has double special defense. It can take anything. And my opponent goes for Stealth Rocks. Hey, better late than never. Probably would have been way more optimal to send it out at the beginning of the game, looking at all the switches in hindsight. Sadly, Heatran doesn't really get to do anything this entire game except for Martyr Stealth Rocks, and now my opponent sends out Conkeldurr. I know Conkeldurr's gonna wreck any of my switches, so I figure maybe I can do enough damage to make my death worthwhile. But I don't. I switch into Scizor here, and I guarantee my opponent thought that I was running a Band or something a lot more threatening. However, I was actually running a Lumberry, because I like my Pokemon to be bulky. I don't like them dying. I want them to hit at least once before getting demolished. Now Scizor pulling clutch, surviving the crit, and getting rid of that pesky Conkeldurr. If Scizor wouldn't have finished off Conkeldurr, and if anything would have went differently by the slightest, I actually would have lost. That was a great game. It was actually a lot closer than you think. It was stressful. It was just, wow. It was a great game. Good game. So for anyone who enjoyed this video, like, comment, subscribe, do all that. But check out my live stream. That's how you get on here, and tons of fun. Everyone in the chat loves to battle and trade. Get involved. It's all a fun community.